Today we're going to be talking about the municipality budgeting. And if I hit the space bar, So we have some rules of operation here. Jeff, can you go ahead and mute Julie so we don't accidentally get anything in the background?
Well, you are the you're the host of the chat, so you can, well, she just muted herself.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
It's cool.
All right, so basically type in your questions in the chat box to Jeff as we go along. And at the very end, we'll have a big wide Q&A session that you can type in your messages. And since there's only a few of us, we'll go ahead and unmute you if you can. Otherwise, go ahead and type in the message. And then obviously, if there's something that's bigger than what we want to produce in the webinar, we will go ahead and give you a phone call or an email back to cover those. All right, with no further ado, today we're talking about creating a municipality budget. Now, it depends on what you're looking to do with the municipality budget, but basically, let me get to Pro Fund Accounting. All right. So the start of most places is looking at your past budget that you may have already set up and getting started with the new. So we have a report called Budget Worksheet. And you basically run this report and you can specify the type. You probably want to do the last year. If you already have one, and you would select your dates for last year. Now I'm going to go back a couple of years because the data I have is relatively old. So we're going to go back to January of 2018. That didn't work. All right, come on. That's better. All right, 131. Actually, I'm going to cheat and use my worksheet here. But basically, so I'm looking at 2017s. So when you get started, you would want to report like if you've already set a budget up and you've done it, and it will give you basically what will happen is it will show you all of your account numbers, what you last put into it. And in this case, it's big. So you can print this out and we give you a place then to write in a proposed budget so that you have this available when you go to enter the budget. To enter a budget in the municipality, that's done through General Ledger Post, and we use a source of entry of BGT. Now that's your starting budget for a year as a BGT, and then throughout the year, and it's date sensitive, so your effective date would be the one that when this budget is in effect. So in this case, we're going to say 01 of 2021. I'm going to create a journal, and now I would start putting in each entry of all the lines. Now that becomes kind of cumbersome to do. So what we have done, we're going to go ahead and say unload. So what we did is we created a little create an empty budget journal utility because it was so cumbersome to have to key in all of those account numbers. So we'll come in here, and what this utility does is it gives us the ability to select asset liability accounts and fund balance accounts. Normally you don't. Normally you're just budgeting your revenue and your expense accounts. And again, you need to put in the right effective date. And for some reason on my machine, I don't know why, it won't do this on yours eventually, but it tells me I have to close and restart. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so then you come into General Ledger Post, and now you're going to be editing a BGT journal instead of creating one from the beginning. And here, basically what we've done is we created with a $0 amount every one of your account numbers that is an asset and a liability, or that is a expense and revenue. So you can kind of see here, this is park fees. You'd put in a budget amount of, $45. Edit. So this way you have ability to go through them all and just put them in, and you won't miss one, because you can kind of go through this list and say, which one is zeros, which one still has a zero in as your listing. And it's going to do all your funds. And my current one, I have a test account that has 22 funds, so it's quite big. And I'm not going to go ahead and go through this. Basically what I want to do is just I'm going to unload this. I guess I can commit it, it won't really matter. 20, 21 budget. But then again, if during the middle of the year, let's say you have a budget meeting and you need to make an amendment to your budget, you would go under General Ledger Post and use a BGA to make an amendment and make sure the date is the effective date of that amendment. So you would move $10,000 out of one budget account. So you'd be putting a negative 10,000, and you'd be putting a positive 10,000 into another, because you're not, your budget needs to be reflective of the change. So you don't want to be making a once you make a budget, obviously you got to stay within it, kind of thing. But this way, when you run reports, it will pick up based on the effective date, whether it's going to include that amendment or not. So if you run the report, let's say it's a June amendment. So if you run the report in May, it won't show that amendment in the budget reports you run for May, but if you run the same reports for looking at July, it will have that amendment in the July reports. That way it's just able to see how during the course of the year when things are changing. So once you have a budget, we'll go ahead and load one here. The BGT, and this one 2017, and so basically you can see, and I should make the announcement as well, for revenue accounts, you want to put your budget dollar in as a negative, just to be descriptive. So really we have a budget that was set up. And you don't have to budget every line. It's not like you have to have every line budgeted. That comes up. You can remove items, individual lines from the initial budget report that we generate. It's just strictly a kind of a help to get you started so that you can see, okay, here's everything I have. Let's just make sure I get the budgets in for the things that we are going to really look at. Then, as you're posting along and you're going through AP and everything, you'll be running a series of reports, though, that are designed by the state. We start with basically what I call the M budget report, because this is the one that mostly gives you your standard day-to-day budget. And you can specify whether it's the current month, and you're specifying then the dates you want to look at for the budget. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the 2015 budget that they have. And that one looks like it's a current month budget, so I'll run it. And it takes a little while because it's got to go through a lot of data. Let me maximize this so it looks a little bigger. So this is the budget that they have set up for 2015, and it shows the dates at the top. And you can kind of look at the percent variances to make sure, yes, I spent 100, I've gone over, I've gone under. And it's just a way to easily take a look at, snapshots of your budget as you go along. You don't really have to run anything or create anything. It's pretty much built in. All you need to do is make sure you put in the BGTs and the BGAs when they happen. And you can post in advance, like you saw here. I posted a 2021 budget in advance to have it in there, and it doesn't change how these reports work, because they're basically limiting by the dates at the beginning and the parameter set. Where you have a current, you tell me what your current year, you tell me for this report to last year, because this is a report that shows last year. So you can kind of do comparisons to this year, last year on the report. So you can kind of see, putting in the dates, you can kind of get an idea, okay, last year we spent this by this time. It just gives you a handy way to see, am I progressing along in the way that I should be, or am I going, have we overloaded one account? So we put everything into this account. We don't really want to be spending any more in, parking in our parking zones or whatever. And we want to back off on that and start looking at ways to disperse, money into the different parts of the budget that we can. Again, these are, long, lot of pages to these reports. They are fairly long and cumbersome to look at, but they do help you on a galactic basis be able to watch what's happening at specific snapshots in time. Usually we want to run one of these at the end of a month end. So after you've cleared out your month end, you've got all your AP in, you've got all your payroll in for the month, you would want to run a budget report for the month to make sure that that something either wasn't posted incorrectly and you say, whoa, this really shouldn't be here. Or that, it's just saying, hey, we didn't really budget enough because we expected that we wouldn't have that many, let's say election workers, since we have election workers, since they had to work 12 days now. We weren't expecting the 12 days of operations for election workers for counting that we had this year. And so now all of a sudden our, budget for paying our election workers is, 20% over. Let's see. And again, the little side thing can help you with getting to the different funds. It shows a little, breakdown by fund over here. Okay, then going out of reports. The other way we start is, like I said, with the budget worksheet, and they've got a couple of other reports in here for if you want to look at how your budget and adjusted budget comes across. You can run this report and give it your year dates. And then you can, a lot of parameters into it, a lot of different things you can do. My point is we want to make sure that you understand it's here, it's available. There's a lot more that can go into this. There's a lot more details that can be, talked about, but today's webinar is just about making sure that you're aware, that everybody's aware of how the system is operating and how it's put together. The details are going to be, obviously, you're going to take time to set up your BGT report for your BGT journal. At the beginning of the year, we'll take the majority of the time in this, as well as the other majority of the time is coming up with the initial budget, which we recommend you do that on paper or something like that you can write it down on, and so that when you come to do the budget and you come to post the budget into GeoPost, that it isn't such a, you're not trying to guess what the number should be. You're just able to key it in, kind of thing. So that's really all we have. Let's see if I can get this to work. So 2015. And I'm going to report on funds, revenue and expense only. Okay. So basically it's showing that, like here, don't like going to the cash forward, like the council. We had a $2,000 amendment for the budget for the adjustment. Started out at 4,000, so the net result was 6,000 at the end. So it just kind of gives you a way to see that during the course of the year, these adjustments were made, and you can track it that way as well. Like supplies and printing, all of a sudden it took us a little bit more money than we thought. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions. Jeff, got any questions coming in?
So a big question from Julie.
Yep.
For those that are coming over from Pontum, is there a way we can get our totals into ProFund finances and or budget?
The totals would come into ProFund under the, wouldn't be the budget, it would be the totals coming in from Pontum would come under the balance forward. So that would be a BF journal. And you basically just put in your ending dollars. We don't have any way of automating that right now. So it just means you print out a report at the end from Pontum and saying this is the dollar amount that I left this, at. Usually if it's the year end, it's easier because then you don't have to do your expenses and your revenue, because that's all been rolled up into a year end closing value. So you just put in your opening balances for the new year. If you're in the middle of the year, then you have to go through the pain of saying, as of this date, this is how we ended Pontum, for all of our accounts, and this is what the values that we need to start out in a balance forward journal for ProFund. And yes, in a balance forward journal, you can put expense accounts, even though normally it's the balance forward is for assets and liabilities. When you're starting out new, the expense accounts work just fine.
Julian, does that answer your question?
Yes, I believe so.
Great. Carrie, do you have any questions? Or Julie, do you have any further questions?
Nope, I think I'm set. I learned how to set up a budget and pull all I'm glad you have the thing to pull all the old, or pull all your account numbers in.
Yes, that was always a pain, so we added that. And hopefully yours doesn't say it's got to kick you out, but if it does, it's not a big deal. You sign back in.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Just keep track of if it does do the kick out, just the little note beforehand will tell you what journal number it created.
Okay.
Got a question from Carrie. Can we still do budget amendments through BGA in the Posts tab?
Yes, that's the whole. In General Ledger Post, you would go in there and do a BGA, and that's how you put in an adjustment.
Great. Carrie, hope that answered your question.
Did that answer your question, Carrie? Because I'm here
Yes.
for you. I am absolutely here for you, Carrie. If you have a microphone, you can unmute and even ask it to
She doesn't have a microphone.
It happens.
Okay, thanks.
Budget
Seems the
cuts. Budget cuts.
same. Yeah, she said, okay, thanks. Seems the same. I thought it'd be lots of new stuff.
No, sorry. This is just these webinars are mainly just to make sure people know that they're aware we have things, because we've been asked many times, you've got all these great things, but nobody ever talks about them. So we're trying to do one a month that we talk about.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for attending. And like I said, next month we'll have another one.